Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Cold Red. I'm Ray Carr, and with me always is Fitz. Fitz, how are you?
Yeah, hey Ray, I'm doing okay, and as you know, and as our audience knows, about a week ago, we put out some behavioral characteristics of the abductor or abductors of Nancy Guthrie. In other words, what they were doing before the crime, after the crime. I know that's out there, and some things have been happening, and a whole week has gone by, and actually, as we're recording this, we're just about at the 4-week point exactly, within a few hours of the abduction taking place. And I feel that we should, since Savannah Guthrie, through her family or with her family, put a personal message out, really not to others, but to the abductor. I think you and I should do something like that. And we talked about it in the last day. You kind of took an approach. I took an approach. They don't contradict. We both agree with what the other person wrote. And then we've agreed before we came on the air, let's put both of them out there. And Ray, this is to the abductors. This is to the people, one or more, who took Nancy. And you're going to hear a slight different approach from Ray than mine, but we both agree with each other. And I'll say up front, I'm hoping you listen to Ray's ideas and take it from there. And then I'll come back as a follow-up afterwards, and maybe you'll listen to mine. But the ultimate goal, of course, is the safe release of Mrs. Guthrie, or at least being told where she is. Ray, why don't you start off with your thoughts, and I'll pick up and go with mine.
Well, I want to say that this is a short message to the offenders from both Jim and I. I want to say if you had any part in what happened to Nancy Guthrie, this is for you. You already know there is no real moving on from what you did. Time does not erase it. It just changes the way it shows up in your sleep, in your relationships, in the way you look over your shoulder. Whenever a case like this is mentioned on the news, right now, Nancy's family lives every day in the space that you created, between hope and grief, between waiting and knowing. You cannot undo that. You can change what happens next, though. There are only two futures in front of you. In one, you keep running, hoping that no camera angle, no digital trace, no loose conversation ever catches up with you. In the other, you stop choosing fear and secrecy, and you take control of the one thing you still have a say in, whether you come forward. Coming forward does not start with an anonymous message to any podcast or cryptic comment online. It starts with getting an attorney, then speaking truthfully and completely to law enforcement. If you really want to talk, that is where it must happen. Any real cooperation belongs on the record, where it can bring Nancy home, answer the questions her family wakes up every day with, and may even be considered when your choices in the future are judged. If you're listening and you were involved, understand this. Silence is still a decision. Every day you choose it, you are choosing to let this family stay in the dark. You cannot change the beginning of the story, but you still have a say in how it ends. Jim?
Thanks, Ray. And if you are out there and you just heard what Ray said, I agree with him. And I would suggest you take his advice. If for at least right now that doesn't work, I have a few other ideas I want to run by you. And here they are. And as we said earlier, this message is different than ours, mine and Ray's last week, and different from Savannah's of a few days ago, certainly in terms of its purpose. As with her words, it's not for those who may know you, it's for you directly, the abductors. Up front, and you may be surprised to hear this, we're not going to insult you, criticize you, or otherwise denigrate you. In fact, we'll even compliment you by publicly stating, as I've said before in some media appearances, that you pulled off a very successful abduction operation. We don't agree at all with your actions or what you did to Nancy, But we can't deny that it's a mission accomplished, quote unquote, for you, at least regarding the taking of Nancy herself. Our utmost goal with this message is, of course, for the safe release of Nancy, or at least information as to where she may currently be located. And that would certainly be for her and her family. I'm going to switch this around a bit in this message, and that is, what about you? What about your legacy? That is, what will other people think about you now or in the future? Have you considered this notion? Even if you remain anonymous in the future, you may want to consider thinking about this. And let me just say here, what you did was wrong. Nothing justifies taking another human being and causing this level of suffering to her and, of course, her family. But people who do acts like these often believe they were wronged or overlooked or are trying to prove something. If that is how you see yourself, we want to hear it, not to excuse you, but to understand you. Right now, the world sees you as unstable, impulsive, and cowardly, but you have the ability to correct that. Whatever your grievance, Nancy is not the person responsible for it, certainly not directly responsible. Keeping her hidden only deepens the harm. So let's talk about some communications, and I'm going to back up a little bit here. Both Ray and I have investigated many other major cases over our combined 60-plus years in law enforcement. One thing we've learned over these years is that, for the most part, purveyors of such high-risk actions do so for a demonstrative reason. We and others may not agree with said reason, but in some way, somehow, there is a stated rationale that presents a clear motivation that at least the perpetrator, or to the perpetrator, makes perfect sense. Again, few others may understand it or concur with it, but in the back of their minds, they can at least say to themselves, okay, now I got it, sort of. The exception to this would be, as we'll call them, the perps without a cause. They tend to be psychologically unhinged, highly emotionally damaged, sexually perverted, have a history of alcohol, drug abuse, and as such undertake their acts clearly related to mental health and or addictive reasons. That is, to satisfy need-driven behavioral issues internal to them. There are well-known offenders out there, some of whom Ray and I interviewed and studied, including even more recent events in which coded messages were left online, on ammo, videos, handwritings, or other materials left behind at scenes and had a message. They had an articulated motivation, even if subtly masked at first. They had a reason. They provided a distinct rationale for their actions. In doing so, they make it clear they're not unhinged, perverted, on mind-altering drugs, or on a drunken binge. You, however, undertook this well-planned February 1st abduction, but for no apparent reason. So, are you the calculated, clear-thinking mastermind of this abduction, for whatever reason that makes sense to you? Or are you the pervert, or the nut job, as some people would say, or just drunk at the time? To summarize here, and Ray and I certainly agree, as I think the whole world does, firstly, free Nancy. Then, for your legacy's sake, provide your rationale to the world. Send it by whatever means to the FBI, the Pima County Sheriff's Department, Cold Red, or some entity out there. You can no doubt figure out a safe and secure way to do it. However, and this is very important, when sending this message, include a fact or something else in it which proves beyond any doubt that you are the abductor. You don't want copycats taking credit for your work here. If it's received without that proof of life, or at least proof of you being the actual abductor, and or Nancy's present location, it will be considered meaningless. So lastly, are you the cool and calculated master of what you do, having undertaken and completed a successful abduction operation, or are you a mush-brained, perhaps even drunk pervert who simply got lucky? It's your legacy. How do you want to be perceived? As Ray said earlier, bottom line is do the right thing here for both Nancy and you. Free her, and at the same time tell the world you're not a nut job, which, for the record, neither Ray nor I think you are. But hey, it's your legacy. You got to be the one to tell that to the rest of the world, not us.
Well spoken, James. Well spoken. I hope that the offenders that are involved in this take heed to what we're saying and contact law enforcement at the earliest convenience. The more you let this go on, the worse it's going to be for you.
Ray, I think we said it all. I'll take us out. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this special episode of Cold Red.